Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Lionsgate Podcast with Sahdi and Omni. I'm Omni,
And I'm Sahdi.
and today's episode is our first episode of season 4, all about higher self and spirit guides. I'm so excited
I'm
about it.
so excited about this one too.
I tell you, I think about all of our episodes are very special, but this one is huge. I think out of all of the people that we've talked to and conversed with about our podcast, they've asked this question the most.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a spirit guide, an angel, and higher self?
Right. And what is the higher self?
Exactly.
And what are spirit guides? Because a lot of people, including myself, have gotten them confused. So we can start there. So when we're born, before we're born, and before we are incarnated into this dimension, we all come equipped with a connection to our higher self and at least one primary spirit guide. And we'll go into later the different types of spirit guides, but for right now, I just want to let you know that there's a distinct separation between the two of those. And some people are born with more than one primary spirit guide, but their job, they are contracted to help you along your path for the rest of your life. So they are there when you take your first breath, and they are there with you when you take your last breath. Other spirit guides can and will come in and out of your life through different periods. Maybe some are only contracted to come in during traumatic times in your life, but your primary is always there. And on occasion, people are born with more than one. In my experience, I've seen people with up to 4 primary. But let's just say, for the sake of this episode, that you have one primary, just so we can keep it simple and easy to understand because it's very complex. Let's start with the higher self. So the higher self is your own expanded consciousness. It's the purest essence of who you are at a soul level. It's a part of you that exists beyond the limitations of the physical world. So ego and everyday identity. Your higher self holds your soul's wisdom and all of your life's purpose. It's not a separate being, but a version of you that is more connected to universal truth and unconditional love. When you connect with your higher self, you're aligning with your inner wisdom and your soul's guidance. So that's kind of how you can know the difference when you're connecting to your higher self and when you're connecting to your primary spirit guide. Your higher self is more like your intuition. So have you ever been sitting there and you've been thinking about a problem for days, and then you get super quiet and you're just kind of sitting with your own feelings and your own emotion, and out of nowhere you get inspired or an idea pops in your head and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But it was coming from yourself, and you're like, why didn't I think about that before?
Your intuition.
Yeah, it's your intuition, totally.
So like when I've said time and time again, I feel it in my bones.
Mhm.
Like I'm so
It's your gut
certain
feeling.
your higher
That's your
self.
higher self.
Because it's all knowing.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And so with the spirit guides, it almost feels like something coming from outside of yourself. Your spirit guides have a tendency to send a bird to you. Numbers 1111, 333, 555 during specific times. They're trying to get your attention. We have free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even our higher selves cannot make us do anything, because that's kind of the fun part. That's like the wild card in the 3D game of being human. We have our own free will and we can do whatever we want to. But we do have this guide that's assigned to us. It's like, we're just going to make sure you're guided in the direction that your soul's purpose is supposed to be guided on.
Yeah.
And your higher self is going to give you these little nudges and give you these little thoughts that pop into your head. And we call that intuition.
That makes sense, because if somebody's so far off of their spiritual journey, if they're just completely disconnected, they're not going to feel that gut intuition.
They really won't.
Or they won't see the signs. They don't realize to look for them.
Mm-hmm. And they don't see it that it's synchronicity, and they don't feel like it's signs. They look at it, oh, that was a weird coincidence. And then they keep on going about their day.
Yeah.
And it's really crazy, because if you look back, usually your primary spirit guide will have a signature. It'll have something that it has always kind of done throughout your life to kind of show you that, hey, I'm here. They can't just come right down in your face and say, this is the way you need to go. They can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a part of your spirit guide's journey to be that guide and to be able to not interfere, but just give you all these signs and synchronicities to try to keep you on your life path.
That makes so much sense.
If you look back when you're maybe a child, for instance, I used to find these little leaves when I was a kid, and you throw them up in the air and they come down looking like a helicopter, right? And I remember when I was a kid, I used to pick them up and play with them all the time when I was in deep thought. I didn't call it meditation, but it was usually when I was walking by myself, not with a group of friends,
Right.
right? And I would lean down, I'd pick one up and I'd throw it up in the air, and it would just give me this sense of peace
Yeah.
for some reason. To this day, I just find them randomly. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in North Carolina. They've come to me during certain parts of my life. Recently, I was going through a hard time, and there was one in the middle of my floor.
Out of
And
nowhere.
out of nowhere, and I was just asking for a sign from my spirit guide. And I turned around and looked, and there was one on my floor, and I picked it up, threw it in the air, and I was like, thank you. You know, it brought me a sense of peace. So it's going to come different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hummingbird that also comes to me during times. I know that you have, when you see a blue jay, you're like, that's my grandma.
Yep.
That's definitely your grandma. That's her signature.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be your primary, but that's how you can tell.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about primary, we're talking about spirit guides as well.
Yeah.
But just so you know that you've never been alone. You have always had someone beside you, whether you've been open to the connection or closed to the connection, and it's never too late to open that connection. But you have had somebody by your side this whole time.
Yeah.
So the best way that I can describe the energy of higher self, if you can imagine yourself as an ocean, and it's filled with every single bit of knowledge that you can accumulate, the vastness of you as a whole on every dimension and every timeline and every version of itself. It is the whole of that, of this body of water, the ocean. When you incarnate into human form, you are like a water droplet of the whole of that ocean. And you get to live 20 years, 60 years, maybe 100 years as that droplet in human form. You really can't wrap your brain around what your higher self really is because it's too vast. You can't. You're a droplet. It's like trying to drink the ocean out of a straw. You just can't do it.
Right.
You're limited to what you can comprehend.
Yeah.
Then that's when they say when you pass away, you go back to source. You go back to your ocean and you're reconnected with the wholeness of who you are. We call it higher self. We label it as that, but it isn't actually higher. It's everything. It's the lowest version of yourself. It's the highest vibrational signature of yourself. It's every single thing. So while you're having a human experience, your higher self as a whole is like, okay, cool. I want to experience life in the third dimension as this droplet, as this human form. And this is the life path that I want it to experience. And you're never detached from your higher self.
Mm-hmm.
It always has like an energy string attached to you. So as soon as you pass away, it can come right back to you. It's like an umbilical cord. The crazy thing about it is that we have free will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the really cool things that we have as humans in this game that we're playing, that we're gifted with free will. So no matter what happens and what direction we're guided in, we have the choice to follow our intuition, our higher self,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a choice to follow our spirit guides, but we don't have to.
Yeah.
There is a darker side of that I wanted to get into later. When you disconnect from source energy, what can end up happening to you?
You know, but that makes sense when you're talking about the higher self being a vast ocean and you're just being a droplet of that ocean, because it's like all those drops are past and future lives. And
Yeah,
different
everything happening.
yeah, different timelines or different past lives, like karmic reincarnation. You were reincarnated 1,000 times. Those are 1,000 droplets in that ocean, and
Yeah.
that's how huge it is.
Exactly. And you can also be running around here on earth with other versions of your higher self in different form. You know what I mean? You could have different pieces of your higher self just experiencing itself with different consciousness and different lifestyles. You could have one in India, you could have one in Asia, you could have one here doing different things and living different life journey.
Having different experiences.
Yeah.
To collect back to source.
Yeah. And so I'm weird. I like to do weird things. I like to go into silence. Sometimes I'll like blindfold myself for a whole day just to see what it's like to be blind so I can feel my other senses better, so I can hear better or feel more on an energetic level. So I do things like that. And so I was thinking about that. My higher self is this ocean. It could decide to come to this third dimension as a male or a female. he could decide to come to this dimension and take a droplet and incarnate it into a human body that was born blind to see how that would feel to be blind your whole life. And then when that body dies, it goes right back to source and actually expands the knowledge of the higher self. So every time the higher self releases a droplet, and not only in this dimension, your higher self can release droplets into any dimension.
Yeah. And planets, different planets.
Yes, different. It's very vast. But just for the sake of
Keeping
trying to
it
keep
simple.
it simple, it's really hard to do. That's what can happen. Everything is always expanding. Our consciousness is forever expanding. So every time a droplet is released into human form, our higher self is also learning. It's like a cell.
It's like AI.
It's fucking AI.
Oh,
Dude, it's fucking exactly
that's
like AI.
wild.
And then, I have my ocean, my higher self that I'm attached to. Every single person on this planet does too. We have our own oceans that we're attached to. So that's beautiful in itself. And that's why we have to have our own different guides.
Yeah.
Let's say my life path is to be a healer.
Mm-hmm.
One of my spirit guide, the one that's my primary, it could be something like an ascended master, or it could be an ancestor that ran in my family line. And I might have had a great, 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 great grandmother that had ascended to the point of being able to come back as a guide and was asked by my higher self to accompany me on this journey called life and help assist me to become the highest version of myself.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about deities?
Yeah, deities too. So I'll just run down the list real quick of different spirit guides. There's thousands of them out there. I'm just going to go with the main ones.
Okay.
So there can be guardian angels, ancestors, spirit animals, nature spirits like elements,
Oh, yeah.
ascended masters, deities, gods and goddesses, interdimensional beings.
Hold on. I'm a triple air sign, okay? But I am such an infinity for water. Since I was a little kid, I was like a fish. Do you think one of my spirit guides a water element?
Definitely.
Holy cow!
One of my spirit guides is an elemental.
Oh, I'm getting chills. So I cannot wait to do a meditation. We're going to talk about this on
No,
tea
you're
time.
good.
We're going to do a meditation. Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about this on tea time.
But yeah, gods and goddesses, and there's galactic guides. Your guide might not even be known here to this planet Earth because, like we were talking about earlier, we're that droplet and we can land anywhere that best fits our life journey, what's predestined for us, what our higher self wants to experience in the human form.
Dude, I so resonate with that.
All right, so deities are pretty much divine figures from various mythologies and spiritual traditions embodying specific aspects of life and creation. Usually their role is for protection and wisdom related to their particular domain. For instance, in the Hindu religion, they estimate that there's millions of deities. So they practice the 33 core deities, which equals 330 million deities. They all have different purposes. And it's symbolizing pretty much the endless manifestations of divine forms. And it's not really a literal count.
Right.
Basically, you're just trying to say that there are millions of forms that God can take.
Yeah.
If you take the ocean and you throw it up in the air and all the droplets that come down separately.
Oh,
different aspects.
Right.
So that's what deities are.
Okay. That
They're
makes sense.
a version of the divine creation and consciousness of universal consciousness.
Right. So like our oceans are connected to a bigger ocean.
Yes.
Okay.
So our ocean is just a drop in another ocean.
Yeah.
And they're just a drop in another ocean.
Yeah.
So it all leads up
In the shape of a pyramid. Yeah.
and we're all connected to source consciousness. In the infinite vastness of that, we're just but a droplet in an ocean, inside of an ocean, inside of an ocean. It's fucking wild. It's a fucking paradox.
Yeah.
And then there's ascended masters too. They're evolved spiritual beings who were once human and then achieved spiritual enlightenment. Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin are just a few of ascended masters. Their role is usually to help you deepen your self-growth and compassion and the understanding of universal truths.
Okay.
They help during times of spiritual seeking, transformations, or aligning with your higher purpose. So, ascended masters were once humans, and they have evolved past the human experience.
Buddha, he got enlightened.
Right, exactly. And so did Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's why people who devote themselves to Jesus feel his presence with them.
Oh.
And even if he wasn't your main primary assigned at birth, you call on him and he will be a spirit guide for you. But there's things you have to do for that. You have to invoke him, and you have to drink of his blood and eat of his flesh, and you have to carry out rituals to give your will and your life over to him.
I'm just thinking about when I was younger and went to church and I saw people get filled with the Spirit and laugh.
Yeah.
How they would be drawn to talk in tongues, and it's connecting to me because I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense because I've channeled a deity before and I felt more filled with the spirit or
Yeah.
a spirit than I ever did when I went to church because I wasn't connected to that deity. There was times when everybody rose their hands for healing, I did feel a presence, but looking back, I'm like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah. It was invoking the spirit of the ascended master into your energetic field.
Yes.
Yeah, it's real. And a lot of people think that he's a jealous God and he doesn't like to work with other deities. But
Yeah.
in my experience, I haven't found that to be true. I think that Jesus is just one of an infinite amount of ascended masters that is willing to work with people.
Yeah.
From what I've experienced, he doesn't have a problem with allowing you to seek other paths
Yeah.
on this journey. And there's interdimensional beings as well, or galactic guides, and they're from other realms and dimensions or galaxies.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, like the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, they provide insight to people who resonate more with the universal consciousness, and they help expand your awareness and guide those who feel drawn to starseed origins.
Oh, okay.
And they're all about collective consciousness and cosmic unity and things like that.
Yeah.
They'll come to you and you can call those towards you. If that's one of your missions in this life is to create universal unity and love and compassion and all that things, you can ask for one of these interdimensional beings or galactic guides to help you.
So if you're drawn to aliens and that, then you might just have a spirit guide that is an alien.
Definitely.
I have a couple friends. I can't wait to talk to them after this. Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah, but there's a plethora. There are so many different spirit guides. There's Greek mythology and there's Egyptian, and the list goes on and on. But the best way to tell who your spirit guide is to look inside yourself and see what drives you and what makes you excited and what your life path is.
Like water, shit. How did I just come to that realization?
Yeah, that's how it happens.
Yes.
You talk about it and you open yourself up to it, and then you get these messages. Anybody that's listening, don't feel bad if you haven't felt your guide with you your whole life. It's never too late to open yourself up. And you can ask your guides questions too, right? And your higher self and your spirit guides, they're always going to work well together.
Yeah.
Because a spirit guide, let's say Kali, she's not going to work with me and give me this beautiful experience if she doesn't resonate with my higher self. Because I am my higher self. I am a droplet of that ocean. And so she would be like, no, thank you. Or I wouldn't have felt pulled to her in the first place. It's energy. It's like magnets.
Yeah.
And you're drawn towards what you need to be drawn towards.
Right.
It's just part of the process.
Let's talk about how you can connect to your higher self or spirit guides or what can help you get prepared. Me and Sahdi have a bestie named Sass, and we're on this journey of me and Sass trying to open up our third eye. And so we all got together and we're like, what should we start out with? Decalcifying your pineal gland. And your pineal gland is an actual part of your body. It's a physical attribute of your body, but spiritually, it's your third eye. It secretes a chemical when you are born and when you die. So when it calcifies, and it calcifies through fluoride in your water, through different foods and diets, through your energetic system being cut off, it calcifies through a lot of things. And so in order to decalcify it, which is something that me and our friend Sass did, it really opens it up wide and helps you.
Oh, yeah. So do you want to go over some of those things that you did?
Yes.
I have one on there that you might not have on there, and I totally forgot to tell you about it. One of the things that you can do, and this sounds really easy, is you can put a flashlight on your third eye, and it helps to activate it.
Holy cow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I used to put flashlight on my eyeballs when I was little because I wanted glasses. Maybe I accidentally maybe that's why I saw spirits when I was younger.
Maybe. I mean, no, but you put it in the middle of your forehead.
Well, the first thing I did, you can check and see if there's fluoride in your water, and I just tried to get rid of as much out of my diet as possible. You can take supplements, look into that. You can listen to frequency music. Hertz 963 helps you resonate with your higher self. And we talk about vibrations and frequencies in episode 8. So go back and listen to that episode, and that'll lead you into it. I listen to frequency music every single night. But when you listen to one that resonates with your higher self in that frequency, literally on Spotify or YouTube, just type that in, frequency 963, and it'll pop up with that. The only warning I'll give you is that you can get a headache from it the next day.
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
I talked to Saudi about it. I was like, man, I have such a bad headache today. And yeah, she said it's like a muscle, your muscle sore. So space it out. I would do it like once a week starting out. I increased it. Meditation, obviously, and we have a whole episode on meditation. So look into that because there's 1,000 different ways to do that. Sound bath, which is something Saudi and I did together. And I actually saw a vision of my primary spirit guide in that sound bath. In case you guys don't know what that is, this is where you go and they play singing bowls and chimes and gongs and different kinds of music as you lay down in a meditative state. And they did acupuncture on our third eye, which isn't very common in sound baths, but we went together and I had a vision of my primary spirit guide in a field and she had red curly hair and I just knew that was my happy place.
And that's kind of how you can tell the difference between a spirit guide and your higher self, too, because your spirit guide will usually show up as something outside of yourself.
Yes.
If you have a vision, it'll show up as a deity or whatever. You can ask your higher self to show themselves, but it's usually a manifestation of what you want it to be. Because how does an ocean show a droplet what the ocean looks like?
I did have an experience literally last week with my higher self showing itself, and it was wild. Like we were saying, when we go do research in any kind of episode, we end up having things happen to us to do with that episode. So,
And that's another part of how you can do that. You can start researching. If you feel like maybe one of my spirit guides is Odin, because you've had a call to Odin, you've felt a connection, start researching, start studying everything you can about them, and then ask them.
yeah, activate them.
Activate them, ask them if that is who you think they are.
Yeah.
You could also ask them to show you signs,
Yeah.
touch you on certain parts of your body, and that's their signature. And every time they come,
Use your pendulum.
use your pendulum.
Use your
You
divination.
can use your body as a pendulum.
Yes.
Ask them to push you backwards and forwards, to the right, to the left. Ask spirit to reveal themselves, and they will.
Yeah. You open that third eye.
And maybe it's not Odin, but maybe it's something similar.
Yeah. Because I thought my primary was Lilith for a while because again, seeing red hair, it wasn't. And then all the pieces fell together.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that too here soon. Oh, you can get a healing. So energy healing or Reiki, and that can shake something loose. You see visions a lot of times when you do that. When I had my Reiki healing, I saw an eye. And I really felt like I was tapping into a male spirit guide and a female spirit guide. And I talked about that in our episode of energy healing and Reiki more in depth, but I think that's a good way. And it's good practice just to have some healing done on you. Foods are important when you're trying to clear your energy. I went on it was over a month where I cut sugar out completely.
Like detox.
Yeah, detox. High vibrational foods. We talked about that in that episode about vibrations and frequencies. But also turmeric, raw cocoa, apple cider vinegar, chlorella, garlic, beetroot. All these are good practice to eat when you're on a cleanse. Another way you could meet your spirit guides or higher self is get a reading. That is how I met my primary spirit guide was through Saudi doing a reading. I looked at her and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to meet my spirit guides. And my primary came up and it was so crazy too with that reading too, because I remember Saudi was pulling cards and stuff and she goes, okay, she's saying you're going to love to put all the pieces together. It was the last 2 years of my life, little pieces. I have a lot of jars of herbs and we were talking about this deity and the jar of herbs started popping.
Oh, yeah.
And I was taking notes at that time. It was our episode on deities. We were talking about a certain deity. And of course, all my jars started popping. I was like, that's really weird. They never do that unless there's a weather change or something. And it was like my primary spirit guide was like, bitch, listen, it's me. You're talking about me.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
They come in many forms. And like I said, you are given one at birth that stays with you for the rest of your life. but you could have contracts with 150 different spirit guides that are coming through, ancestors and galactic and,
Because some
you know,
come and
ascended
go.
masters, they come and go for certain periods of your time. So what it is, your life is not predetermined per se, but your higher self does design that droplet to have a specific goal in mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out for the higher self and sometimes it doesn't. And what's really crazy about the higher self is sometimes, depending on your purpose, your higher self can give you extra energy and really focus on you as a droplet. And then other times, your higher self might put a droplet into a human body and never really connect with it very much, just to see how much it grows on its own or what it does without the assistance of the higher self coming through. You're always connected to that string. You're always connected to your higher self. So nobody comes into this world alone. But at the same time, you can get different variations of the connection. And that's why there might be some people out there that are like, no matter how hard I try, I can't connect with my higher self. That could be because you haven't put yourself in the situation, like you were just talking about these different methods of how to open up to higher self. But it also could be because your higher self is like, in this lifetime, you have free will. I want to see what you're going to do and then bring that back to me at the end.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you too much direction. I want to see what you do on your own.
Right.
And that's when you can really lean on your spirit guides.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Because that's what your spirit guide is there for. And let me just bring up Jesus, because Jesus is a very well-known ascended master. And they talk about in the Bible how he shepherded the flock and he guided the flock. You know, they're talking about Jesus guiding his people in the right direction. And so that's the thing about a spirit guide. They can't interfere. They can only guide you.
Yeah.
Right? But we have free will. So you can be a sheep or part of his flock and then just be like, but I have fucking free will. You know,
I'm going to go be a goat.
He could be your primary and you could run away and do your own thing.
Yeah. I just have a few more things about connecting.
Okay.
You can go on a float. So Sahdi and I went to a float tank. Sensory deprivation. Sahdi says she'll blindfold herself for a day or take a vow of silence to connect better. And when you go there, you can hear, but you're laying there not hearing anything. And your sight is taken from you. You can go there and have an experience with your higher self.
Well, I did have an experience. The last time we went, I had a full-blown conversation with my higher self. That's how I knew that it was my higher self, because it didn't feel like it was coming from outside of me. It felt like it was my intuition, but speaking to me.
Yeah.
So that's how you know the difference.
I had an experience where I was on my paddleboard by myself in the middle of a lake and I was meditating and I heard this voice. I was asking about when I'd meet my next person because I went through a breakup and I wanted to know. And I just heard this laugh and it was inside of me and it was from me. I knew it was from me. And I was like, why do I have to wait? And she goes, because sometimes people have to learn the hard way. She was just saying, mind, body, soul. You got to balance all three: mind, body, soul.
Right.
Yeah, that was the experience I had meditating. And then you can do freeform writing, which I know Sahdi has done to connect with spirit
Like
guides.
automatic writing.
Yeah, automatic writing, where you just write and then you get messages through that way. And then the last thing is dream work.
Because that's coming from your subconscious.
Exactly.
I mean, unless you're working with deities that are attached to dreams, because then they can alter that.
Yeah.
Hecate is one of them that can definitely go into dreams and manipulate your dreams. You can get a lot of messages through your subconscious, through your dreams, through your higher self, but you can also get them from deities too, so that can get confusing.
Yeah. Either which way, that's something that helps open up your third
connected
eye.
to either one.
We talked about that in episode 3 about the lucid dreaming episode, that people would lucid dream and then meditate within that lucid dream and get ideas and stuff. And so direct connection to their higher self, because that's when you get those ideas. We were flying home from NOLA and I got this crazy idea when I was on the plane and Sahdi was like, well, yeah, we're in the air right now. And you're like way up in the air.
Energy.
Yeah, air energy. If you just ask for a sign and you're open to receiving those signs, you're going to see the synchronicities.
Yeah, that can be with anything too. So, for example, you're in a toxic relationship or you're questioning whether you should stay in a relationship or not. You can wake up in the morning and you can sit in meditation and cut yourself off from everything else. Don't pick up your phone. Don't turn on the fucking TV. Actually close yourself off to any external energy and ask. Say, if this relationship isn't for me, I need you to send a clear sign to me. I need your help. Help me. And then be open Because a lot of times we sit there and we're like, oh, God, help me. We cry because we're in pain or we can't figure something out that's going on in our life. And we ask for help, but then we forget to open ourselves up.
We don't know how to receive it.
That energy, right? So if you're just crying and upset, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But you're not shutting the fuck up to listen. You want to sit there. You want to sit there and be on your phone and watch TV and do all these things to help you get your mind off of it.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get the fucking answer because your spirit guides are going to be, you're too fucking loud.
Yeah.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
That's what you have to force yourself to do if you want a clear message from spirit. You can't just turn them on and off and be like, okay, well, I need a clear sign. It's been an hour. I've been quiet. You haven't given me a sign yet. So I guess you're not going to give me one.
And you can ask for specific signs too.
You definitely can, but you can also say, I am open to receive any messages and signs that you have to give me today. Please help me. And it doesn't matter if you have to go to work or you have to do other things. You can have that mindfulness about you in every moment that you're doing things, every interaction with somebody, anything that's going on in the street or the birds in the sky. Open yourself up to any messages that come your way throughout the day. See if you resonate with them or not. If it catches your attention and there's a bird screeching, catches your attention, that could be a sign. That could be a message.
Well, and learn the signs too, because you create a language with your spirit guides too. For you, hummingbirds are messages.
That's from my primal spirit guide.
Yeah.
She will send hummingbirds to me during specific times as her signature.
Right. So that's a language that you created with them, a personal language. For our friend Sass, she did a meditation, for instance, and she was trying to specifically connect to her spirit guides. She said, I saw a bright light from my right upper side, and that told me that it represented a young female, because from the right side, and since it was high up, it was young. So a younger female present.
And that's her own language.
Yeah. Because for me, it would be lower and to the left.
Yeah. And it's like that with anybody. Sometimes you might feel a warmth, and to you, that's positive. Well, to somebody else, it might not be.
Yeah.
It might be like, oh, I felt warmth. Maybe that's hell.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a demon because it's warm.
Right.
Or something like that. So yes, developing that relationship, but that's part of it. Most people don't even want to connect with their higher self unless they're going through a tragedy.
Yeah.
You drop to your knees and you're like, I don't know what else to do. I need help. And so then you're really trying to connect with your higher self and your spirit guides and all of these other things. That can happen and that's okay. But that's what you can do to open yourself up. So open yourself up to the messages, period. But like you said, there are so many things that you can do to connect. But most of it really is being open and receptive, asking clear questions, and being quiet, not having so many distractions. Like the breakup thing I was talking about. And you go out into the world and you overhear a conversation that somebody's talking about something that resonates with exactly what you're going through and you're getting good advice. Your spirit guides can speak through people. They can speak through animals. They can speak through numbers. They can speak through fucking music.
Yeah.
You can go and just turn the fucking radio on or just push shuffle play on your like songs and say, Spirit, send me a message through this music. And Spirit will fucking do it.
I just had my mom's birthday. Remember? I was like, oh, happy birthday, Mom. I love you. And then all of a sudden, the song that she used to sing came on the radio.
Yep.
I was at work and I went around the corner. I was like, oh my God, this song. And my friend goes, yeah, I've never heard it here, but I love that song. I was like, my mom used to sing this song.
Yeah, see, that's how they do it. But you have to be open up to it. A lot of us will just run around on this planet so disconnected. And that kind of brings me to another side, the darker side of what can happen when you're not connected to your spirit guide or your higher self. So let's talk about the darker entities that could be your spirit guides. Like there's the archdemons and the darker shadow sides of Kali or different goddesses or gods that we work with. There's gods of war. There's gods of suffering and famine and different things like that. The darker entities would usually show up in somebody's life that's struggling with like intense inner battles, unresolved traumas, or shadow aspects that they're either unaware of or have suppressed. So, for instance, archdemons in this view, they might guide an individual to face life lessons around power, temptation, or the darker facets of the human experience. These spirit guides aren't necessarily negative, but they could serve to mirror a person's struggles and push them to confront unresolved pain, anger, or fear. purpose might be to encourage self-awareness, accountability, and transformation, because there's a lot of these guides out there that they have the highest version of themselves and they have the lowest version of themselves. Through destruction is creation and things like that. They're multifaceted.
Would you consider Mame Brigitte one of those? Because she works in the shadows and the underworld as being a Loa, and then
Right.
in the Irish Celtic version of her, she's this beautiful.
Yeah. And most gods and goddesses have a dual side of them.
Yeah, like we do.
Exactly. Some of these guides can be your primary, or they can just show up periodically in your life. So, for instance, let's say a well-known deity is Kali in the Hindu religion. And if she was to serve as a permanent guide from birth to death, she would probably give you a lot of twists and turns in your life.
She's like the Moldavite.
Right.
of deities.
So from beginning to end, your entire life journey would be all about destruction and transformation, empowerment and rebirth. And so if she's just showing up in your life as temporary, she could definitely be there just to help you through something,
Yeah.
a major life event or a part of your journey that you really need help being powerful and strong and determined to be able to burn that bitch down to the ground and start over. But if she's your permanent, then your whole entire life is going to be made up of those peaks and valleys. I would think that would be draining a soul.
Yeah.
To have to go through that their entire life.
Yeah.
Because of that intense transformation, let's say Kali has been with you your entire life. You're going to be continuously breaking down old identities and beliefs and attachments, and you're going to be evolving. And because of all the darkness that she's created or guided through your life, you kind of have a choice. Either you're going to be fearless or you're going to be broken and afraid.
Oh.
We could encourage our independence.
Is that metaphor with the alcoholic dad?
Oh, yeah. The alcoholic dad, there's a metaphor that goes, two boys have the same father, and he was an alcoholic. And one of the kids is an alcoholic, and the other one isn't. And when you ask them, why are you an alcoholic? He said, because I watched my dad. And you ask the other one, why aren't you an alcoholic? And he said, because I watched my dad.
Yeah.
And it's like that in the bigger scheme of things. Because your higher self can be like, I want to take this droplet, and I want you to be strong and independent, and I want you to have this life path. And as a human living the human experience, that can be hard.
Yeah.
And you can be like, why is all this shit happening in my life?
Yeah.
And why is everything so hard? And you can get to a point where you just want to give up, or you get hard.
Yeah.
And then you're just hate people, because you weren't learning the lessons as they were coming.
Yeah.
And experiencing the way that your higher self intended you to, because you're not connected to your higher self. You're really not connected to your spirit. You haven't opened yourself up to that. And you just think you're on your own, and you're in your ego, and you're in your fear.
I think that's why when you do come to it, that it's not like there's no redemption. I think that's why shadow work is so important.
Exactly.
Go back and learn those lessons, because it's all about going back. Which, if you guys haven't listened to our episode on shadow work, go back and listen to it, because that's a great place to start.
This is kind of crazy to think about, but there are dictators and people in power that aren't very good people, like Hitler, for instance.
A very good instance of
Right,
somebody who's
right.
not a good
And that
person.
kind of makes me think, I'm like, we're all coming from our higher self. And then our higher self has a mission for us. Would our higher self actually give us a mission to become someone like Hitler?
Ooh.
But the more I thought about it, I was like, no, because the game ends when everybody is on the same level of consciousness. So you have to go through things to level up to get to the next lesson. So I really don't believe.
Do you think somebody like Hitler is somebody that just disconnected?
Yeah, he committed acts of extreme violence and genocide. It requires a really complex understanding of spiritual influence, free will, and karmic choices. So from like a spiritual perspective, a life path like Hitler's might involve entities associated with lessons in power or control or ego and the destructive potential of unchecked desires. So like shadow archetypes or entities focused on power and control. Certain spirit guides or entities can embody the darker side of power and encourage lessons around control and domination. These archetypes do offer other insights into using power reasonably and respectfully, but the person has to decide how they interpret that guidance.
It's kind of like how people misinterpret the Bible for bad,
Yeah.
for like hate.
And fear, because they were misguided by the lesson. It wasn't supposed to teach them fear. It was to teach them how to overcome fear.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
to love unconditionally, right? And then people are just caught up in that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to point fingers and it turns into hate.
Yeah.
And it turns into chaos.
Yes. Preach.
So the guides are there to amplify tendencies. If you need to overcome fear, they will scare you so much and they will give you so much fear that you only have one voice, and that is to elevate and vibrate above that into a higher vibration of that. Fear, division, enforcing you as that droplet to overcome that. That's what the lessons are there for. Everything proclaimed bad that we have in our life, because there is no good and bad, that's a human construct.
That makes sense, because as a human, if you're scared of spiders, they have people overcome their arachnophobia by exposure.
Exactly. But if you're cut off from your spirit and you're cut off from your higher self and you're cut off from your primary spirit guide, you're just going to be like, oh, life is fucking me up.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not connected to it. So you don't understand why these things keep happening to you. And I hear this over and over again in my life, where people have come to me and been like, everything in my life is fucked from the time I was born until now. And I'm like, but did you learn your lesson through them?
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful when you open yourself and you really learn a lesson. It's like you pass that class.
Yeah.
You have narcissism. My dad was a narcissist. My mom was a narcissist, all the way up. My teachers, my friends, everybody was narcissists. And I'm like, okay, well, the universe is a very patient teacher. It will continue to give you the same lesson over and over and over again until you learn to protect your energy, until you learn to love yourself and value yourself and rise above the person that would tolerate a narcissistic relationship of any form or kind. Have you learned that lesson yet?
I had to learn it the hard way.
And so it's really hard when you're not connected to spirit to understand that you are just being shown how to evolve. And so you got somebody like Hitler, right? And he had this life that he had. The things that happened in his life were supposed to be a soul experience, and he was supposed to evolve, but he has free will.
He's that sheep.
Free will, again, yeah. And he decided that he wanted to cut himself off from that. And this is the thing that can happen when you do that. He had a life choice where you see he was responsible for the genocide of all those people. He created war. How powerful is that? So I don't like Hitler at all. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if he would have been in contact with his guides and his highest purpose, he could have brought so many people together.
Yeah.
If he would have just loved himself and learned the lessons instead of looking at it like he did.
Yeah.
With all the hate and the racism and just all of that negative vibration. If he would have learned his lessons, how powerful could he have been? He could have united nations.
Yeah.
He could have been such a powerful, beautiful force on this planet for so many people, right? So maybe his life journey was to do something that he took his free will and decided not to.
Yeah.
And so the thing that can happen is when you disconnect from your spirit guides, you're disconnecting from your protection. And then these lower vibrational demonic entities, they can come in and be like, that's a powerful ass motherfucker. And guess what? They're not protected. They're not connected to their roots. They're not connected to their deities. They're not connected to their primary. And they come in and they
yap in your ear.
Yeah. They guide you the way they want to guide you. That can lead to the destructive energy like Hitler had. And that's just as an example. There's a lot of probably people that you can think out there that are dictators and in control right now of nations that are definitely not connected to their highest purpose.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that ends up what happens to some people too. They've had a hard life and they didn't learn their life lessons and they didn't evolve and they didn't expand their awareness and their consciousness. And now they're just kind of left being mean and bitter.
If they're seeing shadow people, do you think they should then lean into connecting with their higher self?
Yes. Okay. Leaning into their higher self, but more so leaning into their spirit guide, their primary spirit guide. Okay. And this is why. Have you ever heard somebody say, I had shadow beings in my house and I ran to Jesus and he got rid of them in the name of Jesus or something like that, the name of Allah or whatever. So Jesus is an ascended master.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has the power to help you get rid of the lower vibrational demonic energies that show up as like shadow beings and darker forces around your house.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why it works is because they called on an ascended master.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be Jesus. And
Yeah.
that's where I think people get a little bit confused that I called on Jesus and it worked.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to be a Christian. That means that you reached out to a deity and he answered you in your darkest moment. There are millions of deities that can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, goddesses and deities. In my experience, I've gone to lots of people's homes and helped them to get rid of shadow beings and things like that. And I've noticed that every time somebody has something like that in their house, it's usually because they're not protected. A lot of times there'll be abuse in the family.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be coming from the specific person that asked me to come over there, but it could be they live with somebody who's abusive or a drug addict. There's dark forces in that house where people are not connected to the highest version of themselves and they're not connected to their primary.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not protected. It's not that they're not there for them. It's because they've closed the door on it and they put a block up and they're like, oh, that's bullshit. I don't believe in that shit. Da 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 da. But then you got fucking shadows running around your house, moving your shit, fucking with your kids.
Or you got some people that see the shadows and they get scared and they want to shut everything off from their spiritual side because they feel like that's connected.
Yeah.
You're doing the opposite of what you should be doing.
That's when you reach out. That's what your guides are there for.
Yeah.
They're there to protect you. That is one of their main missions. And that's why they're contracted to you. Now, it's not that they're going to stop you from anything bad happening in your life because you're karmically tied to other things. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to not let you have this relationship because it's not good for you. They're going to allow you to have experiences that aren't in your mind positive, like karmic relationships and heartbreak and loss and all of these things, because that's what you need to experience as that droplet.
I just keep getting a vision of a kid spilling their drink all over themselves because the parent didn't stop them. Like, you're going to learn today.
Yeah, you have to learn, but also your guides are there and they love you. And they have to let you experience this. But if you open yourself up to it, the experience doesn't have to be as heavy. You can meet a karmic and you can have a brief relationship with a karmic relationship and you can be hurt, you can, whatever, right? But you open yourself up, you have a strong connection with your spirit guide and your higher self. It's not going to last very long. You're going to be like, oh, okay, I got the message. I got everything I needed from this karmic relationship. Now I can move on and go to the next step.
Yeah.
But some people, they're not connected and they're not getting the messages and they end up staying with a fucking karmic that they were supposed to be with for a month and it's 12 years later and they're wondering, why isn't this working? Why does this person love me? Why can't I make it work? And they're going inward because they should have fucking copped that shit a long time ago. But they were so disconnected from spirit that they didn't get the message.
Yeah.
No.
I know you talk about protection and you've said in the past about when you go to do a reading or a channel or anything that you instantly connect to your higher self and you are protected then. You don't have to worry about anything else because you're protected through your higher self.
Right.
So when you go to do that, how did you learn how to do that?
I think just years of practice.
Yeah.
Years of sitting with myself and doing the weird shit that I do.
Yeah.
I try to lucid dream. I talk to my guides in the spirit realm. I blindfold myself. I do days of silence where I don't talk to anybody. I turn my phone off and all electronics. And I just sit with myself for 24 hours or 48 hours. And I'll go to a mountain or a waterfall and I just won't talk to anybody. And it's the only energy that I have to talk to is my higher self and my spirit guides. They are keeping me company. They are talking to me because I have made a conscious choice to close out all of the other outward influences. You have to get quiet enough sometimes. And you have to make a conscious choice that this is what I'm doing. This is my time with you. And I get up every morning. I've been doing this for as long as I can remember. I get up every morning before I touch my phone. I use the bathroom. I go in my meditation room and I sit in gratitude. And I wake up and I say, thank you for waking up. Thank you for the sun. Thank you for the breath in my body. And then I go down the list of the people that I'm grateful for and my life and for them being a part of it. So I thank them for being there with me. And then I open myself up any messages that you have for me today. I'm receptive, I'm open, and I will receive them with gratitude. And I tell them that every single day when I wake up.
Yeah.
And so I've trained myself to know exactly who I'm connecting with.
Yeah. I just started a gratitude journal.
See, that's perfect.
Yeah. And I didn't even really think to do that. I think I saw it in passing. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. So every day I write something I'm grateful for. And it's a good way to train your mind to be more positive.
Definitely. There's a plethora of different things that you can do do to deepen your connection. But I feel like the most important thing that you can do, because you can pick any of those ideas on what to do or a handful of them, but the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to tune into yourself, period. Make the choice to at least allow yourself 10 minutes a day of uninterrupted time with yourself, connecting to your spirit guides and your higher self.
Yeah, that discipline.
You have to tune in.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly throughout the day tuned into everything else. Your antennas are, you're hearing 20 different conversations. You're going to work, you're driving, you're living your life. And it's so much distraction. You can't really build a relationship with yourself if you're constantly being pulled outward.
Yeah.
You have to stop that and just cut the connection to everything else except for your higher self and your spirit guides, period, and go inward. And once you start doing that, you start to develop a stronger and stronger and stronger relationship with them. And then it's going to be super easy.
Yeah.
Like once you get it and you're like, oh, that's a sign from my grandma. Oh, that's a sign from my spirit guide. That's an elemental. That's my higher self giving me intuition. You're going to be able to get it really, really quick.
Right.
But if you've never really done it before and you're not connected, take the time for yourself with grace. Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Be receptive. And then just start building a relationship with yourself. Because I remember before I became spiritual, I couldn't even sleep with my TV off.
Yeah, I used to be that way too.
I used to sleep with my lights on. I used to have something talking or on at all times because I was terrified of my own energy, of my own consciousness. I was afraid of myself. Because when I would be alone and everything was turned off, the voices in my head and the negative things that would come up, it was scary. And I didn't feel like I was by myself. I felt like there was other energies around me. And probably because I had shadow people in the house because I was low vibrational back then.
Right.
And I wasn't alone. There was darker entities around me and it fucking terrified me. Yeah. If you're one of those people that can't even turn off the TV because you're afraid to be alone with your own thoughts, I'm not trying to scare you, but you're probably surrounded by low vibrational entities.
Yeah.
Starts with gratitude and tuning into yourself. You have to get past the fear. Raise your vibration.
Yeah.
Where in your life are you low vibrational? What's drawing these entities towards you? What are they feeding off of?
And then shadow work.
And then calling on your primary and your
Yeah.
higher self as well, because you will be divinely protected.
We talked about living in gratitude and how I did a gratitude journal. Well, I was at work last week and I kept seeing an entity off to the side. Normally, when I see entities, I see a full apparition off to the side. But this one was so close to me and it reminded me of, have you ever seen the movie What Dreams May Come?
No.
In this movie, they're in heaven and the guy can only see this person in a blur, like they're a painting that was blurred. And that's what I could see, but I couldn't make out any facial features. This feeling, I knew it was feminine. They were so close to me and they were putting their hands on my right shoulder. And it felt comforting. It didn't feel scary. And I was like, is this protection? Like, what is this? And I kept seeing it all day. And it was kind of weird because I was fine that week. Maybe the week before I was feeling kind of drained and whatever. But this week I felt great. And I was like, it's kind of weird that out of my whole life, I'm just now getting this going on, right? So I'm sitting at home and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, this is something. And I don't use my pendulum very often. I just don't think to use it. And I just happen to have it out because I just cleaned my room the week before. And I pulled it out and I'm like, was that, because, my mom is on the other side. So I was like, was that my mom? Pendulum said no. I'm like, was that my higher self? Don't know why I asked that question. Now I do. I was tapped in. Yes. And I was like, okay, were you there to protect me? And it said no. And then I said, were you there to give me a sign? And it said yes. And I was like, okay, what the fuck was the sign? And when we went to NOLA, I found this oracle deck. Really weird. We were at a shop and it was on a shelf by itself. It screamed at me. I looked at Saudi. I was like, I have to get this. I pulled that deck out and I'm shuffling and this card comes flying out. So of course, that's the one I needed to find. And this card was titled Abundance. And the message of the card was to make sure you live in gratitude. When you're living in gratitude, abundance will come to you. And that not money necessarily. That's like abundance as in happiness. We had an episode on manifesting. When you're focusing on good things, the universe speaks in energy. So good things come to you. And I was like, that's amazing because I just started a gratitude journal the week before.
Right.
When I was low vibrational.
Your higher self manifesting.
Yeah. And it was so crazy because you were just talking about earlier how it can manifest, but it manifests in what you want to see. I'm like, I can't see what the fuck this thing looks like. And I knew it was something different and it was touching me and I could feel it. I could feel the comfort from it. But it was such a wild message because I've never had that happen before. And here we are studying up on spirit guides and higher self just to get ready for this episode. And then I have that experience. Of course.
And see, that can happen too. So when you open yourself up, weird shit's going to happen, you guys.
Yeah. Cool shit.
Weird shit. It's going to come to you the way it needs to come to you. It's not going to be like anybody else's experience. It might resonate when you listen to our experiences or other people. You could be like, oh yeah, something like that similar happened to me. But it's going to be distinct. It's going to be a distinct signature that's meant to resonate with you specifically.
Yeah. Well, as far as spirit guides go, do you think that they have their own personalities?
Oh yeah. Every spirit guide has a different personality, and that's why they're lined up with you and contracted to you.
I think you've said during a reading, you said your spirit guides are funny as hell. I was like, I want to talk about this because it's funny. She did a reading for me and my spirit guides were trying to tell her about somebody in my life. And she just starts cracking up laughing. And she's like, they just keep showing me this big head. Like, she's like, your spirit guide.
It was like a fucking bobblehead. It was this goddamn dude, this little tiny fucking body, and this huge head. I started laughing because when spirit guides send me messages, sometimes they send me weird stuff. Especially like, yeah, the guy that she's asking about, he's got like this little body and this huge bobblehead. And I'm like, he's a fucking big head. They just keep calling him Big Head. And honestly,
they were right.
They were right.
They were right.
Yeah.
And I think one of mine is a trickster.
They're all different. I mean, like, look at the Hindus. They have millions of deities with different personalities. The main ones like Shiva is destruction and rebirth, and then Kali has her own, and Ganesha is more like a kind uncle that can come in and help you overcome obstacles. Just like people, every person on this planet has a different personality, but some might help you more than others. So say your life purpose is to be a healer or a doctor. You're going to get matched with the deity or the spirit guide that can help you on your journey that you're here for.
Well, I think one of mine has a really funny sense of humor and puts songs into my head all the time.
Or that could be your higher self.
She's hilarious. No. I'll be sitting there getting a song stuck in my head. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah, well, there's usually messages, and music is frequency.
Yeah.
Right? So they're sending you a frequency and a pattern, a voice pattern, for you to tap into that song and figure out what the message is.
If I sing it out loud, usually I can get it out of my head, but I've never thought about tapping it.
Oh, you got to tap in. If they're sending you music and you can't get it out of your head, it's stuck, you have to listen to the song.
Damn.
That's the only way to get it out of your head. And then process it and be like, oh, okay.
Look more into
you.
That's funny too, because they do it all the time. And I'm like, you would think I don't understand. Apparently my spirit guides are patient. They really Okay, so me and Sahdi's spirit guides play well together, right? When I was going through my breakup and was really hurting, I go into myself and I isolate. And Sahdi messages me and she goes, I got to do a reading for you. And I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Her spirit guides got me out of my shower.
My elemental one, apparently.
I mean, I don't know who it was.
No, but I know, but like connection to water, it makes sense.
Right. Water is like my conductor and it helps me connect. And most of the time I turn it on and off when I need it and when I don't. But I was in the shower, so I was vulnerable. Right. And then all of a sudden I got a huge message for Omni and I had to like process what I got and then get out of the shower and send her a message. And I'm like, I need to do a fucking reading for you today. Spirit is trying to come through. They're trying to give you a message, but you're not listening.
I know. And I said, I don't want to be yelled at right now.
It's like an urgent message that spirit needs to get through to you and they can't get through to you. So they went to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I need to call you, do a reading for you or something like right now. And you were kind of scared. You were like, I don't want to get yelled at right now. I know I'm not doing the right thing. And my healing journey, something like that. Like I'm not working hard enough or something like that. And it was a completely different message for you. It wasn't that at all.
They were very gentle and healing and nice.
Yeah.
But then they yelled at Sahdi.
Yeah, they pretty much told me that I wasn't being as supportive or hands on deck that I should be there for her emotionally. And we talked every single day and we would send voice clips back and forth to each other. And I was like completely 1,000% invested, but they're like, you need to go over there and see her. Like you need to physically be around her. And so they were kind of like mad at me for that. And I was like, oh, fuck, man, I didn't even think about that.
To be fair, I was isolating myself as well. So I don't fault you at all. Thought it was hilarious because they were like, bitch.
I was saying we can be droplets together here on this planet at the same time, or we could be in the past, the present. We could be in different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
So our soul can be residing in the hell state. It could also be residing in the 11th dimension. We could be a fucking dragon. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that would be
We could be spirit animals. We could be in different galaxies. We could be alien.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just different droplets of our ocean because it's cosmic. It's universal. It's infinite.
It is, because rivers flow into lakes, flow into the ocean. I keep seeing that. I love that we did this episode because it really does resonate, and it feels like it's a puzzle piece to things that we've talked about in the past. It just makes a lot of things make sense.
Right.
And I love it.
And even with me, I'm still learning.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I had my near-death experience, I met Bassett.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I was bouncing it around. I'm like, is she my spirit guide or she's my higher self? Because I really couldn't differentiate. She's my primary guide. She's been with me since birth. And I feel like we've been cosmically connected longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, I thought that she was my higher self because every time I would try to connect, I would always connect with her. But then I was like, okay, well, she isn't. She is my primary guide because she's outside of myself.
Yeah.
And that's how to tell the difference. Your higher self most likely is not a deity or a goddess.
Yeah.
It's most likely your primary. And it's not related. They're two distinct, different entities.
That makes sense too, because there are times where I hear stuff, I know it's from inside my head, the epiphanies and feel it in my bones. Yeah. It does feel good to know that there's people looking out for you on the other side. I know you can feel your family members that have passed over watching over you at times.
Yeah, and they definitely come in and out of your life too as guides.
Mm-hmm.
They can be. It's a little more rare to have a family member or an ancestor as your primary. That doesn't happen very often, but it can happen.
Yeah.
But you can definitely have them as your spirit guides.
Yeah.
When you call on them, like I have shrines for family members who have passed away, and I give them offerings and all kinds of things like that. And I know when I call on them that they will be there, but they're out doing other shit.
Mm-hmm.
And parts of them are being reincarnated and going back to their oceans, and they can come and be with me for sure and help me and guide me if I am open to that, you know.
And you're activating that.
Yes. You have to keep that connection. You have to have that openness because you can have somebody who passed away and you're like, man, my mom passed away or one of my friends passed away and I can't feel them. Maybe that's because the pain overrides the openness for the connection. And then there's sometimes when somebody passes away and you have so much pain, and every time you think of them, you cry and you feel so bad and you just can't, like your heart breaks every time you think about them. It's very hard for them to come and be your spirit guide and to be there for you because they resonate with that energy.
Yeah, it's hard for them to be around that low vibrational energy.
Especially if they're vibing high somewhere else and they're trying to learn different lessons and escape that energy of low vibration, pain, fear, all of that stuff. So if you're constantly in that vibration every time you call on them, that's why it's really good to have a shrine. Yeah, it's really good to have their picture up and come to them like your mom brought her cupcake today. Like, happy birthday, mama. Give them love and give them kindness, and you talk to them often. And then it makes it less difficult for you because you can feel them with you. They're not gone.
Yeah.
They're right fucking there with you. I promise you that. But maybe it's hard for them to come because every time they come, you're upset, you're crying, and that's understandable. Nobody's telling you not to grieve or judging that at all. But there has to come a period that if you want them a part of your life, that you need to accept their death.
Yeah.
And you need to remember the good times with them and treat them like they're still here.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with them, learn from them.
Open yourself up to the signs from them.
And it's fine to mourn. Nobody can tell you how long to mourn for. But generally, you're not going to really have the strongest connection with your ancestors or loved ones if you're still in the grieving process. That's why it's easier for me to come in and be a channel. So if you just recently lost somebody and you're in a lot of pain and you want to connect with them, you're struggling to connect with them because you're in so much pain. That's where I would come in and I could do a reading and I could, because I'm disconnected, I don't feel pain from their death. I am a clear channel for them to talk to me and give me messages for you. If you're ever in that situation, go to a trusted medium and get a reading done, get that energy channeled to you.
Yeah.
Through another source if you can't get it directly from the source itself.
Right.
But thank you guys so much for joining us. I think that's all we have for today on the subject. But like I said, we're going to be doing Tuesday tea time. So if you have any more questions regarding everything we talked about today, if you want us to get into more detail or go over something specific that we were talking about that you want us to get into a little bit more detail about, just let us know. Hit us up on our social medias.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you look us up on our Lionsgate podcast with Sahdi and Omni on Facebook, our link tree will be up and we'll have all our socials in there. So you can contact us there, and messaging us on there will be the quickest way for us to be able to respond or have it a part of our show. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, and as always, remember to keep your minds open.
Namaste.